Welcome to the Rock Guitar Confidential Podcast with Ryan and Scott. Let me ask you a question. How many original members does it take for a band to be a real band? Find out next. Like the reverb, it makes us sound like the voice of God.
The reverb.
Yes, it's like, what are you doing, little man? Don't you think that God sees you?
Scott and Ryan, this is God. I heard what you said about Youngblood.
What? I'm sorry, who is this, Todd? I don't know anyone named Todd. Who's Todd?
Yeah. Rod? Is it Rod?
Yeah, Rod. I mean, are you Long Rod Von Hugenstock?
Oh, is it Zod? Is it the villain from
the
Superman
villain from
2?
Superman 2, and also from Man of Steel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah, Man of Steel. You never saw Man of Steel?
Oh, Man of Steel. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a rad movie. That's great. That's one of my favorite Superman movies.
I love Henry Cavill.
Yep.
And I wish he were still the Witcher.
Yeah, otherwise known as Geralt of Rivia, at least until the end of season 3. Yeah.
Right, which I finished watching recently.
Yeah. Yep,
which,
it bums me out that he's not going to keep being Geralt. I think I'm going to tap out on that show now. You know what I mean?
You know what? I mean, I'll watch the first part of season 4. I mean, I love all the other characters so much.
Yeah.
Just the notion of like how are they
the
gonna
main character is not the same guy anymore, so it's like, what are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
I seriously wonder if they're gonna write something into the plot where like a wizard like turned Geralt into the lesser Helmsworth.
Helmsworth? Who's Helmsworth?
Hemsworth. What?
You said Helmsworth.
Oh, well, maybe I was thinking like
helming a pirate ship or something.
Okay. Maybe I was thinking like Helm's Deep, like Lord of the Rings.
Well, that's
okay.
Rad. Helm's Deep is the best.
So some evil wizard turned Geralt into the lesser Hemsworth.
Yes. You'll make you at least 40% less charming.
Right. Yes.
Oh no.
And at least 30% worse at acting.
Exactly right. That's fine.
Yeah, I wonder how the fight choreography is going to be.
I don't know, man. Henry Cavill's rad. I'm bummed he's gone. You know, that really stinks. You know?
I'm telling you.
That brings a question up to me, which is like, you know, if you replace one of the most important people in that project, is that project still that project? Is it still going to be The Witcher if it's a different person, you know, fronting The Witcher?
Right.
And I don't know if that's true. You know,
I don't know. I mean, can they? Well, so if so the question is, can they pull an AC/DC?
Yes. Who's going to be the Bryan Johnson of the Witcher world? I don't know that it's Liam Hemsworth.
Well, yeah, that's the problem, is that we already know it's Liam Hemsworth.
Yeah.
We know it's the lesser Hemsworth.
He's kind of more the Paul Shortino of the that kind of world. You know what I mean?
He's more like the... God, what's the Crocus guy's name? Mark Storis.
Yeah.
He's the Mark Storis of the
Witcher world. Well, anyway,
like honestly, even if it were Chris Hemsworth, I'd think,
Chris Hemsworth's too busy being a famous, amazing.
He's too busy being Thor.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
and he's got the Extraction series going on, all that stuff too. So he's I love Chris Hemsworth. He's awesome.
Yeah.
But that being said, we'll see. I'll watch it. I'll probably with you. I'll watch it. I'll support.
Yeah.
I'll support, man. I'll support.
Right. I mean, I'll check it out. I hope. I mean, I think the rest of the cast is great. But so that's an interesting parallel to today's topic.
Yeah, I think the other three cast members, you know, Yennefer, I don't know the actress's name.
It's Anya Carlotta,
and
I think is her name.
And the girl plays Ceres, Freya Allen. She's fantastic.
Yep, she's
and the guy
awesome.
Plays Jaskier is great as well. So
I'm a Triss Marigold fan.
Yeah.
So whatever the actress is that's playing Triss is doing a great job.
Very, very cool. I love also who's the dwarf that's their buddy that always is with them on that. That guy's awesome. That guy's a great actor.
It's not Peter Dinklage.
No, I can't remember the guy's name.
It's not Warwick Davis.
He's tremendous. He's actually so good in that.
Yeah.
So he's really great. So
he's very good. Yes, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Witcher's awesome. But our topic today is something we've kind of brushed about a little bit before, but now we want to really delve into this more, which is, you know, basically it's like, how many original members do you have to have for a band to be considered that band anymore? And does it matter? Does anyone care? I mean, I wonder if the audience even cares. In a lot of times, you show up, and as long as the banner says, you know, Lynyrd Skynyrd, then as far as you know, that's Lynyrd Skynyrd.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, what percentage? Let's think about it this way: what percentage of most shows is hardcore fans? Would you say? If, like, say there's 6,000
God, 100%.
No.
I mean, how many casual people are actually going?
Bands like that? Okay, let's look at some of the bands that we see. Here's a list of bands. We're going to kind of delve with them a little bit. We'll kind of touch on them, but here's the bands that I come up off the top of my head that are bands that are little to no original members. You got Foreigner, Bon Jovi, Dokken, Metallica, Motley Crue, Quiet Riot, Lynyrd Skynyrd, King Cobra, REO Speedwagon, Rat, LA Guns, Bullet Boys, Queen, and then Loverboy. And then on a side note of artists that are ostensibly are solo artists but have got famous eras, you have a Billy Idol, Alice Cooper, Ozzy, Megadeth, and Yngwie. Those are bands that are kind of essentially solo bands, but they have got classic lineups that everyone kind of loves and leans towards. So let's dive into probably the biggest offender is Foreigner. Because if you look at Foreigner, there's like no original members.
Well,
anymore.
not really. I don't know if offender is really the best way to characterize.
Okay, that's probably a little bit leading. I'm sorry.
In the
witness.
classic rock realm, Foreigner, all of the current members are foreigners compared to the original members
who are not there anymore. Basically,
right. If any of the current band members showed up at rehearsal 30 years ago, they'd say, "You're a foreigner. Why are you at rehearsal?"
Yeah, I'm not, mate. I'm from England. We talking about? No, but it's but that's the thing is funny though is that now this is not an indictment on the band themselves. The people playing in Foreigner are great. Everybody in the band is awesome. It sounds incredible. They're nailing the songs. It sounds great. The Bon Jovi, I mean, it's a totally different guitar. To me, Bon Jovi's always been Richie and John. That's like the important part. And then you have Tico, David, and Alec are the other people in the band. But if you could replace any of those other three, it's really got to be Richie and John. So you show up to see Bon Jovi, you're basically seeing John Bon Jovi band. Is basically what you're seeing.
Well, okay. So can could the Rolling Stones tour
just have
without
Mick Jagger?
Right? Could they tour without Keith? I mean, they lost their drummer, right? Which is unfortunate.
But they could, and that's the thing. And then Motley Crue, they just lost Mick Mars. Mick Mars has not been replaced by John Five. So yes, you still have Tommy and Vince and Nicky, but the guy who's like the driving force of the music part of that band is gone. So that's a big deal. That's a major thing. Metallica. Obviously, Cliff Burton dying was a huge thing on that band's.
Well, I mean, it destroyed Metallica.
Yeah, and
I mean, there is no more Metallica.
You could still even kind of claim like maybe Jason Newsted was a major member, but having Robert Trujillo, when I see Robert Trujillo, I go, oh, cool. There's Robert Trujillo from Suicidal Tendencies.
Yeah, totally.
I see him, that's what I think.
So, yeah.
You know what I mean? Quiet
Love
Riot.
Suicidal
They just
Tendencies.
lost Frankie Banali. Like I think it was last year, or the year before. So they don't have. Well, I guess technically Rudy Sarzo's back, but even he's not an original member. He's like he's a replacement member too. So they don't have any original members.
Yeah, but okay, but so there's another distinction that's important. I mean, Rudy Sarzo is the most recognizable bass player for Quiet Riot.
Yeah, and for Whitesnake and.
Yeah, totally. I mean, nobody.
Ozzy Osbourne solo band.
What was Quiet Riot? Was it Kelly something or other? The original bass player for Quiet Riot.
I know Chuck Wright was in that band for a while.
I love Chuck Wright. Chuck Wright is a hell of a bass player.
I know that even though I know Randy Rhoads was the original guitar player in Quiet Riot, I really think of Carlos Cavazos as the OG guitar player.
Right. So then Rudy Sarzo should be the OG Quiet Riot bass player.
Okay,
by that same
if you're
standard.
the only one though in that band, you know what I mean? It's like that's a little bit okay.
Okay, if you're the only one and you're the bass player,
exactly.
Okay,
it's
I
like
get
the
that.
least important member, and then Leonard Skinner, which I believe is really no original members at this point in that touring band. King Cobra, yes, they got the drummer. That's the drummer from King Cobra. Essentially, it's the Vinny Appice, or it's the
Carmine
Appice
That's
band.
Carmine's band, yeah.
And then REO Speedwagon, the lead singer, arguably the most important member is still there, but everyone else has been changed out.
And with King Cobra, major props when Carmine was putting the band back together. I mean, he sought all the original members. It's just Marcy Free has her own band now called I think it's Unruly Child.
Oh, okay.
Very, very good stuff. Highly recommended. Everybody should check it out.
Well, you know what else he also did is he got Carlos. We just talked about him and Rowan Robertson on guitar in the new version of that band.
What? Really?
Yeah, which is
wow. So Rowan Robertson of Dio fame.
Yep, exactly.
You know what?
That Dio should be in the side category too. That's another one of those.
Hell yeah, Wild One is a great track.
That whole
man.
record, Lock Up the Wolves, is awesome.
Just rips.
Really good.
Yeah, Rowan Robertson was
17
a great guitar
at the
player.
time or something like that. He was like 17 years old. And then REO Speedwagon, obviously the lead singer, the main songwriter, is still in the band, but you're really just going and seeing the Kevin Cronin show. It's not really like anybody else in the band is. And maybe that's all people care about. Is it the guy that I saw singing in the videos? I don't know. Now, Rat doesn't exist in any real form anymore, but there was a long period of time there where the version of Rat was changing constingly.
There were two different competing.
Yeah, well, you had a version of Rat that had someone else sing. I think it was Jizzy Pearl from Love Hate singing for the band for a while, and then you had. The Juan Crozier, Stephen Piercy version with all different members, and then they had a couple of competing versions. The closest we've gotten to a real version of Rat was about maybe 10 years ago when they did the Infestation album. They had Juan Crucier came back for the tour.
That was a good album,
and they had those great album, but they had all the original members except for Robin. That was the only original Rat. But they did since then. It's been a weird revolving door of different people coming in and out of that band, which for a band like Rat, as classic as that band is, it's kind of like Motley Crue. You kind of need all the elements of that band to have that, at least that you could, that are living. You know what I mean? LA Guns famously has had two different versions. I'm not sure they still have two different versions of that band. I know you have the
I'm
real
not
version.
sure, but the current iteration of Bullet Boys has a couple of Sacramento natives, Brad Lang on bass, killer musician, super nice guy. I love Brad Lang. He's a great dude.
Yeah, I've
and
heard good things.
Ira Black, also from Sacramento, is playing guitar in Bullet Boys.
I know they had this thing where they were flirting with the original lineup for a time, and then I guess this Mark Torian is just someone that they've struggled, to get along with the original guys.
I mean,
or something, so.
clearly, Mark Torian has the rights.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was
By the way, Mick Sweda also played in King Cobra.
Yeah. Man, that first King Cobra album, God, I love that album. Like, great twin guitar album. Like, if you want to hear killer, like, harmonized guitar melodies in a rock context, that is that first album is so good.
I mean, there's been some good things. By the way, if you guys want to learn more about King Cobra, you should go and check out Animal Planet, because they actually have a whole documentary.
So for those of you who are on the interwebs, which would be like everybody, right?
I think there's a series of tubes, right? The interwebs.
Yes, the interwebs.
Yeah.
There's a really cool video on YouTube of King Cobra doing an autograph signing at a Sam Goody store inside a shopping mall.
Oh, that's cool.
It is the best
what a
thing.
time capsule.
Yeah,
Oh
there's
my
a
God.
couple of. There's also one of like King Diamond. It was the Abigail period where they had Michael Moon on guitar for like a couple of weeks or however long he was in the band.
Uh-huh.
It was like after Michael Denner left, but before Pete Black showed up.
Okay.
But
So
they're
keeping
also
the seat warm, basically.
yeah, they're also doing an autograph signing inside Tower Records or something.
Blast from the past, man.
Oh, dude, it's
By the way,
so great.
Tom Hanks' son, Colin Hanks, did a great documentary on Tower Records. I can't remember what it's called.
It's called All Things Must Pass.
All Things Must Pass. Yeah, that was really cool.
So
Yeah.
one of our future podcast guests, Josh Knowles, my buddy, he's a drummer. He'll be our first drummer
He's
guest on Rock
completely
Guitar.
literate, though, everybody. He's literate.
Yes,
he's
he can-
coherent when he talks.
Yeah, yeah.
So I know when you hear the
I'll
drummer,
say-
like all those fire.
I know.
alarm
Yeah,
bells
I'm
go
gonna
off. Oh my god.
I'm gonna save the rest of the drummer jokes until he's actually on the program. But he played in a band with Colin Hanks.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
Colin
so-
Hanks. By the way, Tom Hanks, Sacramento native as well.
That's right, Sac State grad.
Yep. So LA Guns, probably another one of the more famous bands with like very few to any original members. Bullet Boys, same thing. They have the singer. Now, so it's a lot of people. They see the singers in the band. That's really a lot what they care about. For me, I would go one step further. I need the singer and the original guitar player, but whoever the main guitar player was. If you have those two things, then you probably are looking pretty good. Now that brings us to a band that's probably kind of controversial because the members, well, one of them just bowed out and the other one passed away, which is Queen. So there's a version of Queen that's touring now with Adam Lambert on vocals,
Which is awesome.
it is awesome. And that question though is that still count as Queen seeing that band? I mean, I guess if you can't bring Freddie Mercury back from the dead, so
Well, and Freddie Mercury. So I mean, I think it's just being that Freddie Mercury was just such a singular talent. I mean, even more props go to Adam Lambert for nailing that, because they had the Paul Rogers iteration.
yeah, which was cool. It was
And
actually
Paul-
a cool version of Queen. I actually liked that a lot. Actually,
I don't think Paul Rogers' voice is right for those songs.
no, it was a
at
totally
all.
different animal, but it was cool. I liked the difference. I thought it was kind of cool. It was like, oh, it's got more of a bluesy vibe to it. I like that. You know what I mean? That was cool. It wasn't Queen. I agree with that. I think Adam Lambert does a better version of Queen than Paul Rogers did.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
I kind of thought it was cool. It was a different thing. You
Well,
know
I
what
mean, I can respect that. Yeah,
almost
But-
like Page and Plan is different from Coverdale Page is different from Led Zeppelin. It's like each of them are a little different from each other. you know
yeah.
what
See, I mean, Coverdale Page was cool, but I just wanted more Whitesnake
Yeah, I get you. Yep.
Yeah.
And then another band that I think that you and I
or
both-
Led Zeppelin for that matter.
we actually
Sorry.
just recently saw live is Queensryche, and a lot of people will say like, oh, without Jeff Tate, but dude, I gotta tell you, they're so much better with Todd LaTorre than they were with Jeff Tate. And yes, the only two original members in the band are Michael Wilton and Eddie Jackson, but like.
Yeah,
it's
Queen-
a lead guitar player, co-songwriter, and the original bass player / backup vocalist with a guy who sings like unbelievably on vocals, with a great drummer, with another great second guitar player.
Yeah,
I mean,
the band is killer. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Queensryche already set the bar high for musicianship just by being Queensryche.
yeah, it's true.
Right. So if you're even going to play in that band at all, you have to be at a certain level.
Yeah,
right?
not only
Skill and talent level.
not only proficiency as a player and instrumentalist, but the songwriting. The songwriting is so high level in that band. It has been forever.
Yeah,
you know, and
absolutely. Although, dude, give me, like Queensryche in Tokyo in 1984 doing "Take Hold of the Flame."
yeah. I have the bootleg of that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we didn't get Take Hold of the Flame at the most recent Queensryche
Yeah,
show.
we got
so
a lot of great stuff, though.
we did, and I
they
loved
played
it.
a lot of the new stuff, which the Todd LaTorre era stuff I really love. I think it's fantastic.
Wholeheartedly
Yeah,
agree.
yeah.
So extra props to Queensryche for making new music.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? They aren't just doing the hits and then
I mean, they're doing
town,
that too,
right?
but this set is slowly evolving into like half all the stuff they've done with Todd, and then half the classics. You know what I mean? And
Well, hey, as you've always said, less isn't more. More is more.
Speaking of that, let's get into the side category. These are people who are like solo artists, but they're famous for certain eras, and their bands have sort of swapped out as you go along. So Alice Cooper, good example of that. Is there really a definitive version of Alice Cooper? To me, there is. It's like the Al Pitrelli sort of, trash, hey stupid era. That's when I kind of Steph
Well, I
Burns.
mean, Al Pitrelli is the guitar player that I want to hear in that band because I
Yeah.
love Al Pitrelli.
Yeah, but that's like to me when I think of Alice Cooper. That's the Alice Cooper
Yeah.
I think of. That's because I discovered Alice Cooper in like 1989.
Sure, and that's no knock on Nita Strauss or
Yeah. Or Ryan Roxy. Yeah. Or
Yeah, Ryan
Red
Roxy.
Beach, who played in that band for a while too.
Ryan Roxy is also a Sacramento guy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
But I mean, just looking at that and saying like, okay, that
Kane Roberts, that's the bodybuilder
yeah,
guy.
from way back in the day.
He's the current
Well,
guitar player.
Kip Winger and Rhett Beach are both members of Alice Cooper at various points. You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, but if you look at that, I mean, I think that's a band that as long as you see Alice Cooper, he's gonna bring it with his musicians. The guys who are playing with him are gonna be great.
Yep.
I think if you look at let's see, Loverboy, that should be in a separate category. Dokken. So Dokken's a band where really it's just Don, but with the ghost of Don.
Well, yeah. Oh,
and
Don.
then all a bunch of backup guys. John Levin, who's a fantastic player. He deserves to be kind of mentioned. He's a great player.
Dude, Red Beach.
Yeah. Well, Red Beach did that for a while back in the day, and then
I think he's playing with Dokken currently, too.
no, he's not. It's John Levin.
Is it?
He played. I think he did like 2 shows because John had some kind of like I don't know, some kind of a medical emergency.
So
or
is
something
John
like that.
Levin the guy that came from out of nowhere who sounds exactly like George
Yeah,
Lynch?
he actually. I guess the story is he was Don Dokken's attorney, and he turns out he could actually play exactly like George Lynch. So and he's been touring with him ever since. And so
Nice.
he's great, man. John Levin sounds more like George Lynch than George Lynch sounds like George Lynch. You know
Yeah,
what
yeah. I
mean?
remember that
It's-
first album that he was on,
Yeah.
whatever it was called. But
Yeah.
I mean, the cover, it looks like Back for the Attack, but with a white background on a blue black.
That's one of those
background.
weird things
Yeah.
where you look at that and this is a guy who's played with this band for like 20 years now, and we're saying he's like the replacement member, but he really is. I mean, obviously, you can't separate the George Lynch era from Dokken. They're
Like
it's the
I
same.
remember being wholly invested in and I'm gonna again new music, right? So when Reb joined the band, they released Erase the Slate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were making new music, and so
And it was
this new
killer, especially
was
when it came out.
killer.
It came out like 99 or something. And it was a
Right.
badass Dokken record.
Right,
you know?
we were still dealing with the fallout from the grunge apocalypse. We were just wading through all the new metal garbage.
Yeah, trying to get rid of
totally.
it. Yeah, and then finally Dokken drops this amazing. And then they put out a Blu-ray or DVD too of the live thing with Reb on
Yeah,
guitar.
Live
too.
from the Sun.
So
Love
good.
that
That's a great
live.
album too. That live album is killer.
Oh,
with
so
Reb
good.
playing like Tooth and Nail and stuff. It was really cool.
Yeah, so I was fully invested in the Red Beach iteration.
Well, he's a
of
legit
Dokken.
player. He's a legit. You could replace George Lynch with Reb Beach. That's a guy that you can see as the successor.
I mean, you could
Yeah.
replace most people with Red Beach.
That's true, but you know what I mean. Though?
Yeah.
Like you can see that this is a new iteration of the band. It's also great, you know?
Right, and they're making new music.
Not to
So,
say that the John
you know,
Levin stuff, but John Levin he clearly kind of got hired to do that gig to sound like George Lynch. So it's right.
And I
it's-
felt weird
yeah.
about that in a way
Yeah.
that I don't fully understand.
Yeah, well, because his Lynch's style is so unique, and to kind of ape it almost feels a little bit like too intimate, if that makes sense.
So yeah, there's something. It's kind of like it was like the uncanny valley.
Yeah, it's like watching
Of-
like the Governor Tarkin in Rogue One, where his face wasn't quite right. It's like
Or like when one of the fembots like has their face ripped
something's
off or
not
something.
quite
Yeah,
right here. I can't put my
right.
finger on it. You know what I mean? It's kind of so. But yeah, I would say that would be an example of one where it does work. Now, if you look at Ozzy Osbourne, now to me this is tough because it depends on I think when you discovered Ozzy Osbourne. If you discovered Ozzy Osbourne on like Blizzard of Oz and you grew up listening to Ozzy's stuff, then you kind of need to hear him with one of his great guitar players. You need to hear him with Randy or Jake or Zach. That's kind of what you think of as the Ozzy. It's Ozzy and Zach, or it's Ozzy and Jake. It's
Ozzy and great
Randy.
guitar player.
Yeah, it's not just Ozzy and whoever's there. Now, that's not to integrate Gus G, because Gus G's great.
Yep.
But Gus G is very clearly like the guy who's hired to do the parts, but he's not like a co-member. He's not like a member of the band.
Gus G got a raw deal because I don't know, that album that he was on, it didn't.
He didn't get to write on it. He didn't-
Yeah,
nothing.
right.
Yeah, I mean, he had to redo some of the rhythm. Not even all of his rhythm guitar on that. and he just basically played solos, which is great. He did a great job of doing the solos, but the songs were just not great.
Yeah, I would rather have Ozzy and Gus G write some songs together from scratch.
Yep. Or Joe Holmes. Now, Joe Holmes kind of a similar situation. Got hired to do the Osmosis and Down to Earth tours, and he was with the band for like 6 years. Never really, he got like 2 co-writes on the entirety of his entire tenure.
See, so Joe Holmes, so there's a band. Can Lizzie Borden survive with,
well, Lizzie Borden is tough in the sense that there was never really a definitive era of Lizzie Borden. There's like always been changing of people in that band. You know what I mean? It was never really set to at any point. There's not a classic era. Oh, this is the era that's for me it's going to be Visual Lies.
Well, Visual Lies or Love You, what was it? Love You to Death, or what was the one with the one with American Metal on it?
I don't remember.
Yeah, where the album cover is the like BDSM chick with like the axe, and there's like the mirror tile on the wall.
Very interesting already. I thought it was interesting.
Oh man, it was awesome.
Yeah, but that's but there's not. I don't think there's a definitive. This is the era. Like Wasp is another example of a band we could put in that. Basically, the Wasp is essentially the Blackie Lawless band. Yeah, that's more or less what it is, and it's whoever else is playing with
Chris Holmes.
Yeah, but he wasn't in the band forever. There's a whole laundry list of people who have come through that band.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like Megadeth in a way. Megadeth's kind of the Dave Mustaine band, but it's like Dave Mustaine and whoever's playing with him. that's kind of what it's become.
And that's what those bands have to be, right?
But is that still Megadeth? If you see it, would you in your head say, "Yeah, I'm seeing Megadeth," or are you thinking, "I'm just seeing Dave Mustaine"? Like when you see that band,
it's kind of the same thing because Dave writes all the songs.
Yeah, I gotta say, if he was playing up there with Marty and Dave Ellefson, which I know is never gonna happen again, but then I would say I'm seeing Megadeth.
Who cares about Dave Ellefson?
Well, but he's still
he's a creep and he plays bass.
He is definitely a creep. There's no doubt about it.
That's like 2 strikes.
I got you. I could take James Lomenzo on bass then, I suppose.
But, any good bass player, it's fine.
But if with Marty and Dave, that would feel more Megadeth than if it was just Dave and nothing against Kiko, because Kiko's an amazing guitar player. But I would think if Kiko's being a guitar player in Angra, I don't think of him.
Yeah.
He's not. He's just like, I got an awesome gig with Dave. I'm gonna play all the Megadeth stuff. That's great.
I would definitely want to see Megadeth with Marty again. But I'm happy just seeing Marty being Marty.
But that to me is the highest level that band can reach, is if they have Marty on guitar.
Thanks for listening to Rock Guitar Confidential with Scott and Ryan. Please make sure to like, rate, and subscribe. Now back to the show.
And then Yngwie, at this point, he's always been a solo artist, but at least initially, when he first hit the scene, it was like the patina that this is a band. This is the Yngwie Malmsteen band.
Yeah, but we all know what that was. Steeler was just an
It became pretty quickly apparent what that was when he started swapping out singers.
It's never just been Rising Force. It's always been Yngwie J. Malmsteen's Rising Force.
Yeah, exactly.
So Yngwie's, although there's some singers, I would love to see a tour where he brought back like all the great singers,
Yeah,
like Mark Bowles and
Yngwie found a great singer. He's found best singer he's ever had, which is Yngwie.
Wait, is Yngwie singing?
Yngwie is now singing in Yngwie's band. Have you seen the live? I showed you the thing with the live footage of it. He's got like the entire band off. We're going to see them live here in a little bit.
I can't wait. It's going to be great.
He's got the whole band like sequestered in like a 10x10 square on one side of the stage. And he's got his 50 Marshall stacks, and then
he has them all on a glass stage.
Yeah, he's got them over on this other side of the corner, and then
you know what? For me, Yngwie can do no wrong, so just go for it.
I just
Whatever.
look at that. You
care.
just have to recognize it's not really a band. You know what I mean? Now another band that's kind of creeping into this territory, which you'd have to start wondering, is still the band is Judas Priest. Is Judas Priest, because you got no Glenn anymore, no KK. You literally don't have the original drummer, although you can argue that.
Scott Travis has
been in the band for 25 years. So
absolutely. So I think Judas Priest has done it as well as probably better than anybody.
Well, you got Richie on guitar, who I guess people
Richie
now
Faulkner's
have
awesome.
kind of
embraced him
as a member.
Dude, I got to see Richie Faulkner on the first tour that he did with Priest, and man, they were awesome.
Was that Angel Retribution? Is that tour was?
I don't think. Well, maybe it was. I went and saw him in Concord. At what was the Concord Pavilion, whatever it's called now.
I don't know, the Dunkin' Donuts Pavilion or whatever it is now.
Yeah, very, very cool. And, fun side note, I still had Scott Travis's phone number from that rehearsal he joined me for.
Are you threatening him?
No, you know what? Super cool guy, man. I texted him. You know, I mean, I've always been just like cool, no big deal. But hey, if we can say it right. So, you know, just texted him before the show. So he was in. He actually texted me back after the show.
Oh, that's so cool.
And said, "Hey, man, I wish we got to hang out, but you know, we had to fly in, do the show, and then fly back out."
Yep.
And I was just like, "Yeah, well, dude, thanks for being courteous enough just to shoot me a text back."
Well, let me ask you this question.
Super cool guy.
I mean, that's awesome. That's so cool.
Yep.
Dude, absolutely. What do you think? Is it something that's only an issue for the hardcore fans? Is it something that you think is something that the average kind of casual fan isn't even really aware of? That there's not the original members. Is this something that's like a much ado about nothing thing? Like, what do you think is? Where's the line too? Like, where do you see that this band's legit, this band's not legit, and does it matter?
You know, I think what matters is the music. You know, since we live in the age of the young bloods and and pop tropica
Post
sluts,
Malones, yeah.
and Post Malones.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's something special about hearing those songs performed live and performed well. So
that's more important than who's playing it necessarily.
Yep, I really do. Like, I'm gonna go hard to that extreme. It's just too important, right?
Yeah.
We can't nitpick over who has an original connection to. Yeah, to me, it really just kind of doesn't matter anymore.
You know what's funny? One of the things I've heard that was a pushback on that is that a lot of the original guys who the iconic versions of those bands are guys who are not doing so well nowadays. Who they didn't have, it wasn't their band name. They left band 15 years ago, 20 years ago. The band moved on, and they're not getting residuals and stuff like that. And then I guess that the idea is that those guys need to get their due for what they contributed to what that band is now.
Yeah,
You know
no
what I mean?
doubt. The business structure. I mean, it's music, so it's all shady and horrible. And
Yeah, and they
no
probably
doubt.
got paid flat rates or whatever, and then now that
Sure.
they're not getting that back end money. So now when you're 30 years old or 26 years old, whatever, getting a flat rate for money now is cool. As you have your whole life to go make more money. If you're 65 and you haven't had any other income or project coming in, and you're kind of you could need those residuals, those little bits of the publishing that you could maybe get a piece of or negotiate. Like with Bob Daisley, famously before. Just recently had that same sort of thing happening. And then the drummer from Blizzard of Oz, I can't believe I'm spacing on his name.
Oh, Lee Kerslake.
Yeah, Lee Kerslake before he passed was trying to get at least a piece of the publishing.
Well, I mean, they had. I mean, they wrote the songs.
Well, no, I
Right?
mean, depends on which song. I mean, on Bark at the Moon, neither Jake nor Bob Daisley got any songwriting credits on that.
Yeah, that's
and
crap.
They didn't get songwriting credits, or at least they got performance credits, but they didn't get songwriting credits on even on Blizzard or Ultimate Sin either, or not
Yeah.
Ultimate Sin. What's the Diary of Madman?
Yeah.
So I know that the drummer definitely didn't. The drummer just got a performance royalty on that. So
Yeah, that sucks.
So I mean that makes sense considering how many millions of albums those sold. That could keep a dude in health for his older years, kind of thing. So it's
That's
a
right.
tough thing. I think when you're a musician, sometimes you're living in the moment so much.
I mean, it's particularly tough too because Sharon's rich.
Yeah,
She's a rich
ridiculously
person.
and so is Ozzy.
Right?
Ozzy's crazy rich,
And
you know?
Ozzy's rich.
Yeah, and
So I mean, dude, they could just go like shit out $1 million and
Yeah.
give it to Bob Daisley and be like, "Hey, thanks, man."
Which I think
and they would never notice the difference.
the difference
It would
is
not
they
affect
don't-
their
it's-
life.
it's- to them, it's I think it's
at
something
all.
like it's like a sort of a principle of the thing. I'm not going to give an inch to these the hired help, basically. They
You
kind
know
of look
what?
at it.
We're all gonna die. So who cares
what?
about the principle of all
I'm
of it?
only
yeah,
finding
that's
this out now. Oh,
So, that's what. If Sharon, if you're listening, you're gonna die soon, right? So
this is not
you're
a
not
threat,
gonna,
by the way. He's
you
just
know.
acknowledging an advanced age.
Well,
nature's
yeah.
gonna
I
do
mean,
its
it's
thing.
just the truth, right? So just give Bob Daisley $1 million.
Yeah.
Just do it. Like,
mean,
you're not going to notice the
The
difference.
combination
and
of Bob Daisley and Randy
yeah.
Rhoads gave Ozzy a solo career.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That wasn't. He didn't write those songs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, it's,
So that gets me fired up, man. Like
really
when
straight
you know.
through, all the way through No More Tears, he was basically Bob Daisley was writing lyrics and melodies all the way from Blizzard of Oz through No More Tears.
Yep.
You know
So,
what I mean?
so I'm going to go on a quick little rant here because this is going to be a little bit off topic, but just
off topic. Of
yeah,
sorts.
dude, you raised my hockles over Sharon, right? So I recently saw an article where God, what guitar? So Jason Becker is about to sell another guitar.
I heard about this. Yes.
Yeah, so
the guitar
like,
that Eddie gifted him.
that's
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's the PV Wolfgang that when he first met, where they first met each other, that Randy brought and Eddie signed it, and dude, it's just the fact that Jason Becker has to sell it to finance
Another year of life.
another
basically.
year of life.
Yeah.
When you know what, Sharon could she could just shit out $1 million.
Yeah.
there you go. Elon Musk could just go,
Yeah.
there's $1 million.
Well, also
right?
that's a commentary on our healthcare system in the United States too. And,
Well, that too.
and our dealing with debilitating diseases and what kind of government help there is available for that for people. And I think also it's a commentary on the wealth inequality that's present just in our country in general, even outside the music world. There's the very much the haves and the very much the have-nots. And
Yeah, it blows my mind that there is not a single person out there that could just, again, there's $1 million. Okay, Jason Becker, you can live for however much longer.
A bunch of his friends have gotten together and done concerts to raise money over the years, and to become a kind of almost an annual thing,
which is great.
But I mean, I'm sure that's only helping. I'm sure that's not really like, okay, this is a cure for this sort of thing. I mean, having a cure for ALS would be the cure for it, but.
Right.
I mean, it's a miracle that he's still kicking all these years later.
Dude, it's a total testament to him and his character and the people around him that take care of him.
That's what love is, man. They're in it through thick and thin with him. I'm sure their lives all got changed too when this happened. And everyone kind of is in it together now. Which is crazy. And I don't know. I look at that and I think. It's incredibly sad that our system is what it is. I mean, people think, oh, he's just some rock star. No, he had his fame for a short period of time back in like the late 80s, early 90s, and it was over before he ever got his big payday.
Right.
He never got his big payday. He didn't do tour with Rock.
There's nobody more deserving of some, million or billionaire just going, you have some money.
Angel investor of some sorts.
Yeah, totally, man. And it's just... Well, and if you want to go into it a little bit deeper, like our taxpayers subsidize the insurance companies, and you still have to pay premiums.
Yeah, it's the idea of either an employment based or I'm not getting into it.
So Sharon Osbourne.
Yeah.
Give $1 million or $2 million to Jason Becker and be a decent person. You'll never know the difference.
Honestly, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do with their money and what they.
I will. Sharon, give Jason Becker $1 million.
I think if there was like GoFundMe, we should all help with that. But I think it's the fact that we would have to support a GoFundMe to make sure that Jason Becker can still survive.
I mean, all of that. It's both. So
it still sucks that has to happen. I mean, we should actually. There should be more guide rails, more sort of parachutes for people who need help, than we have, and that's just it's you look at like we're getting ready to skirt into some political territory, so I'm going to avoid that.
Yep.
But long story short, there needs to be a better way to do that, and the fact that Jason's got to sell that guitar sucks. Sucks for him. It sucks, I
mean, we should all agree that Jason Becker hawking his guitars to stay alive sucks.
Yeah, it totally does. By the way, did you notice that a lot of the other guys who Eddie gifted guitars have started selling their guitars too after Eddie passed? Like there's some of the old, he had a couple of roadies that he gave guitars to. That he had some people that he had signed and given guitars who were friends. So like those guys are all starting to sell their guitars.
Can you imagine like having to part? I mean, like every musician knows what it's like. I mean, I know how pawn shops work. There were times in my life where I had to hawk a guitar for a while. I never actually lost one, but I mean, God, can you imagine having to give up your guitar that Eddie signed? Because you were friends, right? That would be like if you gave me a guitar and like I had to sell it to avoid being evicted.
Yeah.
Right, through no fault of my own, right? Like this is assuming that I held down my job, I wasn't dealing with addiction issues, I wasn't like if I weren't fucking up in any way in my life, if I had to then go hawk that. It sucks.
It's kind of a patriarchal blame the victim sort of mentality too. Like, well, you should have had a better job. You should have just had, you shouldn't have been an artist. You knew this.
You shouldn't have been an addict. You can just quit any time.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Or maybe you should have got a better husband and take care of you. If you're a woman, or maybe there's all kinds of blaming the victim going on in that
That's
scenario.
right.
You know what I mean?
You know what? I blame Kurt Cobain.
Yeah.
It's all his fault.
I mean, that definitely. I mean, it sucks. I mean, in the way it sucks because that was right when Jason was going to get his chance to go and really do the big time. Like he was going to do the Even Smile tour, or not even sorry, the Little Ain't Enough tour. And get a chance to go play arenas and really have a big pay. That would have even catapulted them even further. If he wanted to start another band later, he would have been able to do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, ALS is cruel. This is Lou Gehrig's disease, those of you out there listening. It's very cruel.
Same thing that Stephen Hawking dealt with his entire life as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
It's another person who's got incredible or had incredible perseverance and was able to still make a giant mark on the world, even though he couldn't move or talk.
So here's an interesting thought experiment, right? So if David Lee Roth put the Eat 'Em and Smile band back together, Would you also want to hear some of Little Ain't Enough songs played by Steve Vai?
I would love to hear that. Are you kidding me? Hell yeah. The Drop in
Yeah.
the Bucket, or like even just Little Ain't Enough.
Yeah.
Great songs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That album's great. It came out, unfortunately, at the time, you know, when the grunge thing was starting to happen. So, and it was, I can only imagine if Roth in like 1994, like how awkward that would even just be to be David Lee Roth in 1994. You know, David Lee Roth is an anachronism in 94. Like, you can't be
Yeah.
David Lee Roth like Skilly Bob. You know,
Right.
just all the I'll be California girls, give me
I'm
the back.
just a gigolo.
Yeah, that
hey.
doesn't gonna fly in 1994. You
Yep.
know, when it's like, you know, Stone Temple Pilots and, you know, Temple of the Dog and Nirvana. You know, that,
Yep.
that looks so stupid. It really did look stupid.
Well, it was designed for that to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the whole point.
So he didn't even know who he was anymore at that point. So
Well, again, I'll stay consistent. I mean, I love Diamond Dave, but he's rich, so
Yeah.
who cares?
I mean, Diamond Dave was very much a product of a certain time period, and I think that that's something that didn't age well. That's why Van Halen was able to still stay relevant in the '90s, because they had Sammy as the lead singer, and they could go in other directions. It wasn't like they had to be the Skilly Bob version of Van Halen. You know what I mean? And that's why Roth struggled mightily in the '90s until
Yep.
he got back into Van Halen. Yeah, that's when he stopped struggling. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was an EMT for a while, so he went and helped people.
moved to Japan, studied martial arts and stuff.
Yeah.
He did all kinds of stuff.
So
Yeah.
he lived his best life.
That's true. You know, if you look at that, there's that time period was a really strange thing. So David Lee Roth, I guess we could probably throw in that same thing as far as we see a David Lee Roth. Is it still David Lee Roth if he's, you know, not just with whoever he's playing guitar with? You know what I mean? It's kind of tough. I know one thing that was cool on the was it your Filthy Little Mouth album?
Uh-huh.
He went and found the guitar player that I guess was in the scene with him back in the early Van Halen days. Like one of
that's
the
cool.
other guys. I can't remember his name. He was a good player. It was kind of cool. And that he actually did an album with that guy who I guess was kind of seen as a rival to like Randy and Eddie back in the day. You know, and he
God,
found him-
who was it?
I can't remember his name. He was a good player though. He was cool. He wasn't like Eddie Van Halen though. If you were expecting him to come out and blazing like Eddie or Randy, it didn't have that. It was more bluesy. It was a little more Bad Company than Van Halen. If that
Okay.
makes sense. Which is not a bad thing. I think Bad Company is great. But it was kind of strange. So you want to check that out, check out Your Filthy Little Mouth, that album. And there's a song called She's My Machine, which was
I vaguely remember that.
yeah, that was a pretty cool little version of Roth. So, yeah, I guess I'm kind of leaning towards as long as the music is played well, it's keeping the legacy alive.
Yeah, so I guess we kind of have to like separate that from the who's getting royalties part of it all, because I mean, I want everyone to be paid fairly and equitably, and
Which almost never happens.
which
in the
almost
music
never
world.
happens.
There's always
yeah.
winners and losers, unfortunately, and it's like you know
Right.
whoever's got like for instance, Vince Neil was a hired hand in his own band. You know what I mean? That shouldn't happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Vince.
I mean, it's. Yeah, maybe you can say what you want about Vince's vocals, but he was a big part of what that band was. You know what I mean? It wasn't like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
he has a certain. I mean, I can't imagine Vince Neil fronting any other band. I mean, he is the voice of Motley Crue.
Oh, you know, another band we didn't even talk about was Def Leppard. That's another band where, like, if you look at the original version, the On Through the Night version of Def Leppard, you know, the rhythm section and the vocalists are the same, but the guitar players have changed. And does it matter that Phil Collins been there since 1983? Does that count? I mean, does it have to be Steve Clark and Pete Willis? And
Yeah, I think
Vivian's been there since '92. You know what I mean?
I feel weirder about Vivian because I feel like Vivian is Dio.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Right,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
he feels like a replacement player, even though he's been in the band for 30 plus years. You know what I mean?
Right, I want to hear
yeah.
him do Dio things.
Which he does in Last in Line.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, which is cool.
And you know, in terms of there was the big getting to like royalties and who earns what and whatever. You know, his falling out with Ronnie
Yeah.
was all about writing credits and stuff. And I think Ronnie had the attitude that hey, I paid my dues with Richie Blackmore, right, where I didn't get anything, and before Ronnie went solo, like after Rainbow, Ronnie was near destitute.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is most rock
to hear
musicians.
Wendy tell it.
Yeah.
Right. So he just took that attitude with Vivian.
By the way, Dave Coverdale, same thing. I got before he did the '87 album. It was apparently not. He was broke. That was his last chance to just like make a big splash, and boy did he.
Yeah.
But, I mean, how about like a winning the lotto kind of situation? Oh my
Right, your last
God.
Hail Mary. Right?
You came through. You know what I mean? It's nuts. So, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
you know what's funny? I can say this from like when I was a kid, like with Ozzy and Dio are good examples of this. Is that whenever the new guitar player would come in, either Ozzy or Dio, that was exciting. It's like, oh my God, what's it going to be with this guy? Who's this guy? Like I remember when Zach got the gig in Ozzy. I remember being a kid thinking, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy playing with Ozzy? Sounds amazing," you know. Or like when Rowan Robertson came into Dio, that kind of thing. You were kind of going like, "Dude, who's this guy?" You know, there was an excitement, a sort of discovery, like a rediscovery of that band again with a new guy. You know what I mean? And I think that those solo artists like that, you didn't have that feeling of sort of this is a betrayal or something. Whereas if like a band like Motley Crue gets rid of Mick Mars, you kind of feel like it's a betrayal. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas the solo artist bands, you kind of is like, oh, wow, I'd love to hear it with like Steve Stevens with Billy Idol. That'd be freaking awesome. What's that going to sound like? You know what I mean? It's you kind of
Yeah, well, with Billy Idol, I want Steve Stevens there.
now.
Yeah.
But when he came into the band, he was already in Generation X, Billy Idol before that. You know
Yeah,
what I
well,
mean?
different band then.
Yeah, but I mean that was the artist that you knew. So what's it going to be that combination with this other guitar player guy? And then it was exciting when something like that would happen. I think that's probably a slightly separate category than the original band with like replacement members. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh well, you know what? I totally forgot Kiss.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Oh my God, that's like right in front of us.
Yeah, that's like
Kiss.
right there, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, and in a couple of different ways, there's
I've always
original-
been a bigger fan of the '80s Kiss than I was of the.
Well, the
I was-
songs are better.
Also, the guitar playing's better. Everything's better in that era. And also, I'm not a person who grew up on young. I mean, I was barely born when I wasn't even born. I don't think when Kiss came out. So like by the time I discovered Kiss, it was like '88. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
So-
the tough thing about Kiss, like, so the '80s albums, the singles, like the hit singles, are written way better. And there's fun guitar players to explore, right?
Yeah.
Well, plus they also had studio guys,
To
right?
me, it's always
So-
going to be Bruce Kulick is the guy that that's my Kiss guitar player, is Bruce Kulick. When I think about that, I know Vinnie Vincent was there, and I know Mark St. John was there, and I know obviously.
I'm gonna go. I think Bruce Kulick's great, and Bruce Kulick was the first guy that I identified with when it came to pinch harmonics.
Yeah.
He was a real pinchy player.
He's my Kiss guitar player. When I think about Kiss guitar players, to me, I think Bruce Kulick. No, awesome, killer,
Yes.
killer stuff. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Well, and turn on the night.
Yeah.
That's a great song and a great melodic solo. That's really memorable.
He was shredding
catchy.
back in the day, man. He was shredding.
Dude, Bruce is awesome.
Yeah.
I really love Vinny's songwriting contributions to Kiss because
Yep.
he also wrote some songs on
Yeah.
the Revenge album.
Vinny stuff's
played
good.
by Bruce.
Yeah, Vinny stuff's really good. Yeah.
And I know that he's got some personality flaws,
Yeah.
but
No, I agree. He's
man.
talented for sure. I mean, I like that stuff way better than the Ace stuff. I think that '70s Kiss, and this is not a disrespect. That's classic Kiss too. I think it's like a certain like time and place. You had to. It's like the people who are super hardcore about the Dave era Van Halen. That same sort of thing. Like you had to be a certain time, certain place. If you were like 13 in 1978. Like Ace is your guy or Dave's your singer in Van Halen, and you kind of attach to that. So like when someone else comes in, like Bruce Kulick, or even Mark St. John or Vinnie Vincent comes in and replaces, it's some kind of huge betrayal. Sammy Hagar comes in, it's a huge betrayal because that was your guy. You grew up with that guy.
Yeah, well, and I mean, and Ace was a character, right?
Yeah.
The makeup, the costume, the character,
Songwriting too. I mean, he
right?
definitely had a big stamp on that part of the band. But I kind of found the '70s stuff is just not for me. It's kind of didn't strike me as it wasn't leaning forward enough.
hit or miss.
Yeah.
The great thing about following a band like Kiss, it's similar to Judas Priest because you can hear them grow and evolve and
Yeah.
get better, like
Yeah.
album to album.
Yeah,
right?
especially over like 10 or 12 years, you can really hear a big jump. You know what I mean?
Yeah, or over like 20 years
Yeah.
or 30 years in the
But I
case
mean, that's
of
about
Kiss.
10
yeah.
and 12.
Right,
you can see
right.
like a switch every 10 or 12 years. It kind of changes into something new.
Yeah. So the issue with 80s Kiss, musically speaking, is that the albums are inconsistent in terms of quality. Like the Genes.
You mean like on the album, they're like a great song, poor song, great song.
Yeah,
poor song.
I'll be the first to say it. The Gene songs on the '80s albums suck.
Some of them are pretty bad.
They're
I'll give you that.
they're really bad,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
But the Paul songs, which again were co-written by Desmond Child in a lot of cases,
Yeah.
are really, really good.
And the
like,
Bruce contributions just in the riffs too are pretty awesome too, and the solos are great across the board.
yeah,
you
and
know?
then special shout out to Mark St. John. There's some solos on Animalize that just rip.
Well, that was his job. Like when Mark St. John and Vinnie Vincent came in and Bruce too, they were looking for that guitar hero guy,
Right.
That 80s like Van Halen level guitar player. They didn't want like the 70s guy who's kind of doing the Joe Perry thing. Nothing against Joe Perry or Ace Frehley, just that was their styles are very 70s centric.
Right.
It wasn't like leaning into the 80s more pyrotechnic thing, and they needed that guy who could do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And so I'm going to give Vinny the edge because he actually helped write the songs. He's a great songwriter, great melodic sense.
got no problem with Vinnie Vincent at all. I still
know?
lean towards the Kulick because I just dig his playing more. If that makes
I can
sense.
appreciate that. I can appreciate that. And there's some ripping solos from Mark St. John, but he didn't really get to write any songs.
No. I feel like Kulick was much more of a contributor to the band, and was by the time
Yeah.
he was in the band for like 15 years when he left, he was in the band for a long time. You know what I mean? All the way through the mid 90s.
Like he was the
basically.
perfect guy for the job, and I mean that literally. Like this is the job description. You need to come and do this job.
Yep.
Kulick was obviously the guy.
Yep. I totally did that stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, I think with Kiss, you got to kind of be on board with, okay, it's Gene and Paul, and then we're going to have these other two people playing the characters that you know. You know what I mean? And that's that. And they're going to play the hits. They're going to play all the classic 80s. Well, not even really the 70s hits. They've been doing like the 70s thing.
Yeah, they
for
do
the
some
last-
80s stuff too.
Do
You know,
they do that 80s
yeah, they
stuff?
do lick it up
Okay.
in makeup.
Okay,
right?
okay.
And I think it translates well. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we know Eric Singer is a killer drummer,
Yep.
right? Tommy Thayer is also the right guy for the job of playing Space Ace.
Yeah, exactly.
So, life is too short to be picky on all of this stuff. So, and Paul has said it too. He thinks that Kiss can exist without any original members.
That's gonna
And
be a
you know
sad
what?
moment when that happens. I gotta tell you, like when that's, I think that
It'll
you're
be
right. Though. I think that's heading in
yeah.
that direction. We're gonna have like officially licensed like tribute bands who are like the real version of this band is gonna be what you're gonna see going forward. And I think that's AC/DC, Van Halen, Rush, Kiss, Aerosmith, all the bands, Metallica, any massive Guns N' Roses. They say AC/DC.
Well, I would argue
know.
that Metallica isn't really Metallica anymore anyway.
But what's going to happen is you're going to have these officially licensed, like by the band, tribute bands that are managed by the same people. Are going to be that's going to be the future. I think is they'll be touring in perpetuity. I
Yeah.
guarantee you, come back in 100 years, there'll be a version of Taylor Swift still touring 100 years from now.
Well, well, there'll be like a hologram of Taylor Swift.
No, there'll be
Yeah.
someone playing the Taylor character. It's going to happen. You know what I mean?
I think Kiss could do this better than most, right? I think it's important, man. Kids in a couple generations, fathers and sons going to see Kiss together.
Yeah.
That's a thing that needs to happen long after Gene and Paul are dead.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's going to happen. I don't think there's any chance that it isn't
Yeah,
going to happen.
no, I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, look at like the tribute for the Beatles thing. That's huge. The Pink Floyd touring act that does all the classic Pink Floyd stuff. I mean, that is going to be the future.
But do those bands put on shows like as big as the original
No,
bands?
I mean the Pink Floyd one. That's the Australian Pink Floyd touring band. Whatever they do, like the whole wall thing. They do the whole thing.
like in arenas.
Yeah, they play huge places.
Wow, that's cool.
I'm not sure they've come through this area recently, but they play big
Right.
places. You know what I
Huh,
mean?
that's awesome.
So I think that's going to be probably what is going to end up happening. You're going to have any band that's had massive hits is going to just live on forever in some incarnation. You know what I mean? And be able to tour forever because people want to hear those songs,
Yep.
especially with the Young Bloods and the Post Malones and the Machine Gun Kellys of the
Pop
world.
Tropica
Yeah,
sluts!
they're going to
Exclamation
when
point.
all the rest of the music is going in so far downhill. It's like you're going to even those other songs, the Fleetwood Macs of the world. They're going to look so much better by comparison. It's going to get
Yeah.
more and more beautiful. It's like almost like Dorian Gray's picture in the attic is going to get more and more beautiful every year. You know what I mean? Because it's with what's going on in the rest of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, hopefully that inspires people to pick up guitars and drums and basses and mostly guitars.
I
And-
saw a Satchel quote that I loved. It's like, yes, it's going to inspire people to pick up the guitar and become the greatest guitar player you can possibly be, and then go to law school and be a lawyer because there's no money in music.
Yeah, right.
That's basically what it is. You know what I mean? So you and I are an old guard, man, my friend. We're the
Hey,
ones
that's
that are
all
still
right,
making
man.
our
I'm
living
happy
as musicians.
to. I'm happy to do it. I'm glad. I'm always grateful that you and I kind of skated in under the wire.
Yeah, exactly. We really shouldn't be here. We should be like,
right. Yeah,
This
no.
whole door closed. Did we close the door like a little before these guys got through? Like these guys are way too young. They should have closed us down before then.
Welcome to Rock Guitar Confidential podcast.
Yeah.
We really shouldn't be
Yeah,
here.
exactly. We
Yep.
came in somehow and found a way to make a living playing guitars.
But hell, I'm glad we are, and I'm glad we do. So
Long story short, if you love music, support it, buy the albums. And then while you're buying those albums, please make sure you head on over to Apple Music or Amazon or Spotify and buy the new X Aegis debut album.
Bandcamp.
Or
Go to
Bandcamp.
Bandcamp and buy it.
Any place you buy or download digital music, you can go ahead and do that. The band name is X Aegis. We're available everywhere. And
And the website is www.exaegisband.com.
And you can go to any of our socials from there. You can see lyric videos. Just go to that site. It's going to link you to anything you want to do X Aegis oriented. Also, please, while you're there, make sure to rate and subscribe this podcast and give us a review. It's going to help us get a little more action on the algorithm, which we're also importantly tied into now.
Our overlord, the algorithm.
which
Yeah.
controls all. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us, the Rocky Guitar Confidential Podcast with Brian and Scott. We will see you next time.
Peace.